So doing that show, I know you won some Emmys, right?
6. Well, no, 5. I have
I
6, but 5 of them were from
I
Rosie.
I can see right one above your shoulder
Yeah,
there.
that's 4 of
Yeah.
them.
So what was it like? I mean, what is it like when you find out? You know, first you find out, and you're new to this. I mean, I don't know what season you won the Emmy, but you're very new. Like, that probably people got pissed people off more going, oh, what the hell? I've been writing for 25 years. I don't have a goddamn Emmy, but look at her, 6 months down the thing. So what season was it when you first got nominated?
My first was the show started winning season 2. Season 1, Oprah got the best show, and Rosie and Oprah shared the best host. But from then on, we won best show for the next 5 years.
This is Coop's Comedy Corner. Buckle up because it's funny as Coop's Comedy Corner.
Welcome to Coop's Comedy Corner, people. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and as you know, I'm gonna pump my swag before I go to coopscomedycorner.com to get all swag. Steve Cooper, we have from this show, we have from my business podcast, The Coop Tank, and we have from my other show, Cooper Talk, where I've done over 1,400 episodes. We have t-shirts, we have coffee mugs, we have doggy sweaters. We got a bunch of stuff. So go check that out. And tonight's show, I'm pretty excited. I worked with my guest years ago. I don't know where. I think it was up in State College for an Annie Scarpati gig. But we're friends on Facebook, and she always comments on how beautiful my wife looks. And she always likes my food pictures. And she's a comic who's, actually, she has the life because, she's sitting there. She always going to Broadway shows. She's traveling. I mean, that's what happens when you put your time into the entertainment world. You can go with the spoils. And my guest is Jannette Barber. How you doing, Janette?
I'm great. I'm actually absolutely thrilled. Your dinner tonight looked very good. I am obsessed with your food. So I was particularly excited to get to be on the show.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I started that a while ago and I just did it. And I'm like, because everyone talks about everything's so expensive, but I'm a shopper. My mom came from immigrant parents. So I grew up being frugal. My dad would buy anything. He was from the right side of the tracks. So I've just kept it that way because, I want to eat well and I look what's on sale. And a lot of people don't do that. And they sit there and they go, oh my God, eggs are $6.50. I'm like, well, where are you getting eggs? People will go if you go out. And so it's just like that. But I'm glad you appreciate it. At least someone appreciates my pictures. So okay. Before we get to your career, tell me about you're taking French class. Now you travel. Yeah. You travel a lot. But what made you decide to take French? Have you gone to France a lot and you want to speak with the people?
Well, I go to Paris a lot. I mean, not a lot, but I was there in February. I'll go back in November. My other favorite place is Morocco. Morocco's magnificent. And Arabic, I'm not learning Arabic. That's not going to happen. That's impossible. And by the way, so is French. They as a country, they are letter wasters because have you ever studied French? Here's the word is way out there and they every single, they pronounce the first 3 letters. So it's so hard, but I don't care. I sort of played around with it for a few years. I took a couple of classes at Alliance Française, but it felt more like work. And then just a few months ago, on a Facebook ad, I find so many things on Facebook ads. I just saw this French mastery blueprint, and I think I was seriously not a joke drinking that night because I didn't remember filling anything out. Then I got an email. I thought, oh, well, I'll do the interview. And the teacher is a high school French teacher outside of Chicago. And in 2 months, I can tell whole stories. I've moved from beginner to intermediate, and I can't understand a lot, but I can say a lot and I can read a lot. And it surprisingly, it's a blast. So, and
that's good.
27 countries speak French.
I didn't know that. See, that's always good. It's good to learn different languages. I know a little bit of Spanish, but that's it. But it's always good. So now let's tell a story. I met you when you were doing stand-up, and that's where you got into the comedy world by doing stand-up, right? When did you get into stand-up? Were you a kid who was in plays and stuff, or what made you get into stand up? Because I always wonder. For me, I got into it when I got out of college. But what made you get into stand up?
Well, I wanted to be an actress when I was a little, mostly at this age. I now realize I just wanted to show up. I wanted to validate myself. That was honestly, and I don't like admitting it, but that was it. And I wanted to be an actress, and I couldn't get it. I couldn't book anything to save my soul, but I was funny. I was always, people would laugh. I didn't mean for them to laugh, but they did. And so when all else failed, I thought, well, yeah, I'll do that. And it was it was September of 1983. And that's when I started it. I met Jim Mendrinos in the first month, and Chris Murphy. I don't know if you know Chris Murphy, who was just he's still doing stand-up here, nicest guy in the world. I was at this little hellhole called Storefront Blitz at 42nd and 10th. And my very first set, and a few sailors in the audience, and that was it. I can tell you what I was wearing, but you probably don't care. And Chris Murphy was there to go on, and I did my set standing at the edge of the stage with the cord sticking out my neck. I was so nervous, and he came up to me afterwards, handed me a piece of paper, and said, "I made a list of what you did that worked," which was the nicest thing. And right from the beginning, I think comics are wonderful. Comics would help you. Do you need a phone number? Oh, you don't work Ohio? Here, let me give you a gisser. Everybody was open and helpful, and that was just sort of a different world. And you start stand up, you don't know if you're going to be able to do it, but you try. And it didn't hurt that it was the comedy boom, because there was lots of work out there. So I passed at the Strip after about 6 months. I never did well at the Strip, but I passed at the Strip.
What were you doing for those 6 months? Were you getting auditions? Were you hanging out? Or when you said after 6 months you passed, were you getting in there and finally it passed you, or how did that happen? What happened?
Yes. I started out at a little place. Oh my God, what's it called? I forgot. It was down in the 30s. You would know it. I just can't remember the name of it now. And then you would get spots, and other comics would tell me about other open mics, and some of them were hellish, but you don't care then. And then pretty early on, I auditioned at the Strip. In those days, it was once a month, and you would pull a number. There was a lottery, and if you got in, you would audition in the afternoon in front of a room full of comics. And Lucian came out the first time I met him, and he said, "Be very careful whether or not you want to audition today, because whatever I think of you today is what I will always think of you." And he was absolutely right. A couple of years later, I was asking what he thought of my act, and he's quoting jokes I hadn't done in 2 years. So he never got over how you started. And I loved him. But after, hanging out was a rule. And he said, yeah, you got to hang out. So every night after wherever I could find to get on, I would go to the club and hang out. And you'd keep auditioning no, you'd keep auditioning. You would just get on late night, and eventually he said, you pass.
Now, when you're doing that and you're working, and being me from the Philly area, it was always like if New York comics were coming down, New York comics, because that was the thing. But for you, how long were you doing stand-up till you started going out on the road? I mean, I know there was gigs like, John Schuler up in Connecticut, right, and those like Last Laugh and all those different gigs. But how long were you doing it for a while before you got out on the road? Because it's scary when you go out and you think you have 30 minutes and you go to the middle of nowhere, you're in bumfuck, and you're doing your act, and all of a sudden it shrinks to 10 minutes and you don't have the time, and they hate you because they think, oh, look at the city person. So how long till you started going out on the road?
I work very well under desperation. My day job was waiting tables, and man, am I a bad waitress. Not good at all. And but I bent over, hurt my back. And so now I couldn't wait tables, and I was sort of wearing a back brace, but I'm still getting out at the clubs. But a miracle occurred. I've been doing it about a year now. It was the summer of '85. And because I told you I worked at the Strip, and Larry Miller used to be at the Strip in those days. And we were not friends. He would come in when I was on stage. And one day, he said, it must have been late at night because that's when I was there. And he said, I think you're funny, but you're going to have a hell of a time building an act here. Do you mind? Do I mind if he gives my name to a couple of bookers? And he was talking about Ron D'Annunzio and Chris DiPetta, which at the time was the Punchlines. And I mean, I think Chris DiPetta still has the Sandy Springs, but I don't know if you remember, but they were the clubs. And I was thrilled that he said he was going to do it. Not that actually, that was enough, just that Larry Miller thought I was funny. And then nothing happened. And about a week and a half later, I'm in the club, 2:00 in the morning. He'd had an early set. He came back to ask whether or not they had called me. And I said they hadn't. And he went, and within a day or two, I got a phone call from, I think it was D'Annunzio that called me. And they booked me. 3 weeks, Greenfield, Columbia, South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, and the Sandy Springs Club. And it was $350 a week, pay your own airfare. I was on cloud 9. I thought, wow, I made it. Man, and that's how it started. And they booked me as an MC. And then they kept booking. Then it was a middle after that. And then I was working for, what's his name? Tom Sobel, who owned the Midwest in those days. Keith Gisser, also out in the Midwest, and a lot of smaller clubs. I mean, so my favorite to this day was Wise Guys in Syracuse and the Comedy Trap in Buffalo. Airborne Eddie and Bruno. Those were my favorite. And I would go up there. They would both book me a couple of times a year. But it just sort of
funny about Buffalo. My brother's late wife, her family's from Buffalo. So last year, me and Joanne said, "Come up." They told me and Joanne to come up. Her sister, and they had seen me years ago at the comedy, the Eddie's Club, the Comedy Trap.
Yeah, Comedy Trap.
Yeah. And I remember we went to a street festival, and now it's like a convalescent home. And it was so weird to see, like, years ago you did comedy, but it was just weird because it's like that. And there were so many clubs. And I think I met you at a Gisser gig. I think it was the Nittany in State College. I don't know. I think that's where I met you. I worked with you one night.
Gisser or Scarpati?
Well, I don't think I worked with you with Scarpati. I may have, because I work with Scarpati all the time. But I just remember meeting you. So you're working now. You say it's the comedy boom. Well, then all of a sudden how long does it take you to move up to headliner?
Not long, but I'll tell you why. Not because I was good enough. I needed the money. So one of my job skills is just lie. So I'd call and say I'm a headliner, and I really wasn't, but I convinced a few people to hire me. And when you were talking about the amount of time, one time I had this job. I can't remember who, Karen Rhodes maybe booked it. And I was with a guy, not the coach, but a different guy who called himself the coach. Nice guy. So we get there. It's a 2-person show. And we get there and they want an hour and a half. Well, he doesn't have an hour and I barely have a half an hour, but we have to fill the time. So we go to our rooms and start writing. And so I stretched mine as much as I could. He stretched his as much as he could. And then we did improv to fill it out. But the surprising thing there is by the time we came back from that 1 week, I had a solid 35 because you have to. And I needed to be a headliner because they didn't pay travel if you weren't a headliner. It was all about money for me. I needed.
That's good. So when do you start getting the TV shows? Because you did all those shows, I'm sure.
I did. Yeah, I did most of the shows. I did. Well, the first one, the story of my entire career is spelled Rosie O'Donnell. I worked with her in Bonkers in Orlando. And it was the first time that I met her. And we became, it was an all-woman show. And we, she didn't have a mother. I didn't have a mother. I swear that was the bond in the beginning. So we were friends. So she gave me the first TV spot on Stand Up Spotlight. And I finally got to, it was Rick Messina, who I love him. And he booked me at Bonkers. Years later on The View, we had Tim Allen. And I heard that Messina was in the dressing room. And I went back and I said, thank you so much for my house, because I had a house at the time. And it was cool because he said, nobody thanks me, but I wouldn't have met Rosie if he hadn't booked me. And I think I always like to go all the way back. He then gave me Comedy on the Road. I got Showtime Comedy Club All Stars. I don't remember when that was, but they were fun. It's not as much fun as the club work. I loved the road. I absolutely loved it. Comics would sometimes be in the clubs. They'd go, I have no life. And I thought, I do. This is it.
Yeah. It's funny. We do that when you go on the road. And it's funny. One thing that sucked about the road is when you go like out on the road, like I used to go on the road with a guy named Ray Panetti, and we would co-headline Gisser gigs. We'd drive together because at the time I moved to North Jersey. I was in Nutley. He lived in Belleville. And I got along great with Ray. But the worst is when you go on the road and you just work with an asshole.
Yeah.
You just sit there and you have to spend time with them. I remember I was doing Cosby's Comedy Corner in Newport News, and I was co-headlining, and it was me and this guy who was a ventriloquist.
Oh.
And not like George, not a good one. Like this guy was awful. And I just blew him off the stage. And they're like, you're headlining, tomorrow night, both shows. I'm like, well, I better get the money. He was all like, and he had no personality. We had to share the comedy content. It was just so awful. And he's sitting there, and you're having a few drinks, and there's a dummy looking at you, the ventriloquist dummy, and it was just crazy. But it must have been for you. Well, what was it like for you on the road being a woman? Because I was talking to Debbie about this, and I was talking about Kalinsky about this. There wasn't a lot of women comedians back then. I mean, So what was it like being on the road as a woman?
Well, I've only been a woman, so it's hard to compare. But and when I was out on the road all the time, especially in the beginning, it was me, Diane Ford, and Diane Jordan were the only women you saw headlining out in the places that I went. So you never got to work together. I don't know. It was just, I feel like I was just a comic. I didn't feel like I was a female comic. I've never particularly noticed being female. I have not, I can't say that I'm somebody that ever felt if only I'd been a man, they would have been different. It didn't feel like that to me. It felt like you got to be funny.
The reason I'm asking is I consider everyone comics are comics. I don't care. Philly, it was whatever. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're a woman. You're a comic. You're funny or you're not. But there was a lot of comics who were just misogynist, and a lot of club owners. And I was just wondering if as women you saw that, because it's like as you mentioned, you were on with Rosie. It was an all woman show, which that was the big thing. And me and Deb Casper talked about this, where it's like they didn't want to put two women on a show. So they would make it an all-woman show instead of having, let's have a female opening, a feature, and a headliner, which, we're getting to work, but it must sort of suck at times because you're like, well, wait a second. I don't think it was fair to women back then.
I think it wasn't, but it didn't really register that much to me. When I got on an all-women show, it was like, oh, cool. It'll be more fun for me. That's how I met Rosie. If it hadn't been an all-woman show, we wouldn't have been there. And there may have been misogyny, but I didn't feel it. I got to be honest. I was a bit weird. And I grew up in a kind of a weird way. So I know I have so many friends.
Tell me.
I didn't register it.
What was the weird way you grew up?
Well, my mother left when I was a year and a half old. I lived in the middle of 148 acres in Connecticut. We didn't have, with my father, we had no friends, no relatives, no neighbors, no TV. And I didn't meet anybody my own age until I was 6. And this made it a lot more fun. I was fat. I was gigantically fat. Right now, I am at my 3rd grade weight. So, no wonder I didn't notice if somebody was mean. It's like, it can't really get any worse than it was. So, you can be a misogynist all you like, but you're not hitting me, so it feels good.
I didn't know that. That's so crazy. You think about like how people grow up, and you never know. You never know how people grow up, and then years later you look back on it, like the two guys who bullied me. You find out they had a really fucked up life. And you sit there,
Yeah.
okay, that's why, and you understand.
Right.
But,
I mean, the kids
so
were
okay,
horrible
so you,
and big old nasty, hateful bullies. And as far as I feel about that town, they can salt it and burn it. But who's bitter?
exactly. So you're doing comedy. You meet Rosie. Now Rosie is hosting Spotlight, and I think after she left, I think Bobby Collins took over.
Yes.
When she left Spotlight, did she get her own show, or what was her passage for you end up writing for her?
Well, we stayed friends. So before Stand Up Spotlight, which I don't remember exactly what year it was, but she was moving. Oh, that's what it was. It was VH1. She was a VJ, and she was moving into the city. She was from New York, but she lived on Long Island. She'd never really lived in Manhattan before, and she didn't know a lot of people in Manhattan because she'd been out in LA, and then she came back for this. So so I would see her. Sometimes I'd go to the taping with her. And this is how I think it happened. Because she would call me every night because, stand up, we write the material. We're not making it up every night. It can take you years to get a solid hour. Because I said I had a solid 35. I had a workable 35. But to, get good. And at that time, she wasn't used to having an endless stream. So she would call me and go, oh my God, I got nothing to say tomorrow. So we'd back, comics do this all the time. You're just playing around with words to get something funny. And I think that, although she never said that, that might have been sort of with the writing and how I knew her. Because when I finally got the job on the show, I just knew her. I knew her voice. I knew what she was going to say, and more than it didn't even make sense to me, the extent to which I understood it, which is why obviously that job worked. From the VJ, that's when she pitched the Stand Up Spotlight. She did Stand Up Spotlight. She didn't get the show. I remember I got a phone call. It was November of '95, and I think it was, I was going out with a bad idea at the time. And I called it had to have been a voicemail. And she said, I got a show and I'm hiring you to write. And we started up in June 10th of '96. So I had that much of knowing it was going to happen. And I was hired as a staff writer, and you don't have to, on your office phone, you put in you need a password or something to get to your office messages. And mine was nobody, this is so stupid, but I've never said it, but mine was happy. I was so freaking thrilled that I got hired. I don't know that I was like, there are people that when you're a comic, you just like people, they're going to be successful. Then there's others that you meet, they're not. And then there's the ones in the middle, you really haven't the slightest idea. And I was in the middle group. So I was beside myself that I got it. And then in 6 months, the head writer left, and I got the head writer and comedy producer from there.
Now, what was your day like? Okay, first of all, tell me what your day is like when you're a staff writer, and then what your day is like when you're a head writer. And people, so if you don't know, if you watch a sitcom, when it says executive producer, that's usually it's just a writer that has a title. But for you, okay, so you get the job as a staff writer.
Yeah,
so
in talk, it's sometimes different. Yeah, in scripted, but in talk, the executive producer isn't the writer. They're in charge of every single detail, including technical stuff. But as a staff writer, it's surprisingly different, because as a staff writer, you're paid. You wake up, you get to work at 7. I would get up at 5 every day. From stand up, you're not used to getting up at 5 every day. So, and you've got a blank piece of paper in front of you. And you've got a show every single day. So it's a strip show, 5 shows a week. So you've got, think of something funny, think of something funny, think of something funny. That's your day. And sometimes you're sitting there for an hour going, funny, I got to think of something funny. And then whether it's newspaper jokes. We moved off of that very quickly because it wasn't the right style for her. And I wasn't the best, those kind of jokes. We had Larry Amorous at the time, who is he spits out hysterical jokes like this. I was focusing more on games and her monologue. I was in charge of the first segment, which was as much producing as it was writing because of who she is. Because you just had to know how to, you need to know what little button to push on her to make her come up with her own idea. And later, when I was hiring people, that's what I would say when I would when I was looking for writers, was really, she doesn't want your every word. It was more concepts for her. And I said, you have to see it as creating a hammock in which she can be herself. But you have to have a stimulus to make you. If you just go, be funny right now, well, you can't be funny right now. But if you say the right things, they're going to come back with what they find in him. And that was a huge part of knowing how to work with her, because a lot of it was helping her find it as much as anything else. And the difference between, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, when you started writing, were you also doing stand-up or no? You stopped?
I stopped. One of my big regrets. Later, we were on radio. We did a topic. What do you regret? And I said I regretted stopping stand-up. And she said, "No, you didn't." I said, "Yes, no, you didn't."
Why did you regret it? Why did you regret stopping stand-up? Because
stand-up was the best part of my life. The best part of my career, the most fun part of my career, and television was the most successful part of my career. And if I had stayed with it, so when you look at comics that have been doing stand-up for decades, there is something that they bring. There is just something of the time that they have lived in that. And you can't, I don't care how good you are, you can't get it without living that length of time in it. And so I wish I had, but I didn't. It was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was in the early days, it was 70, 80 hours a week. And I was exhausted, because that's the difference between the staff writer and the head writer. The difference with the head writer is your job is different, because it's getting your writers to the point where they can do exactly what they need to do. So to understand her, to work with the stuff that they've written that is good, but may not be quite there. It was also, I was supervising producer of the show. So you're also working with all the segment producers. And when you're the head writer, everything is on you. I never, ever, 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 if there was something she didn't like, said so-and-so wrote it. If it ain't right, that's my problem. And that's a significant difference. It feels different, when you're doing it.
And you're the boss. No, did people, because you said you were there after 6 months, was anyone other writers, were they resentful of you because you became a head writer? Mm-hmm. Because I would think they'd be like, well, how this comics, what the hell is that guy's got booking? She's got that blah, blah, blah. So how would you handle that? Because there's probably people who just wanted to see you fail.
Oh, that was the difference, a huge difference between stand-up comedy and television. Stand-up comics, they'll help you. You have a horrible set, comics will go, oh man, that's rough, let's have a drink. TV producers or TV people will just watch you die, and they want it because the stakes are too high. There's too much money there. So if they can get rid of you, they can have your spot. So there was a lot of that, and I got the job, and because she wanted me to have the job. And eventually the whole first group of writers, they didn't get picked up because they didn't One particular writer who had more experience than I did thought he should have that job, and he would sort of lead the path. But she doesn't have experience, and I didn't have TV writing experience. But it's not like I was keeping it a secret from Rosie. And they know from the work you do. Our original head writer was a man named Randy Cohen. He had come over from Letterman. The man was brilliant. And thank God, because I had 6 months to learn before he left. And that's how good he was. Season 6, he comes on as a guest because he was writing the ethicist column at the New York Times. And I went back to see him and thank him and tell him that without him, I never would have been able to do the job. And I told him what happened with the other writers. And he said, "Oh, didn't you know that would happen?" And I said, "No." And he said, "That always happens. Yeah, you have to clean house." And surprisingly, the best writers that I had were not comics, because Debbie Casper was the only writer that left voluntarily in the entire time, because she wanted to go back to LA. Debbie could have stayed the whole time. She was, she's a great writer, and Rosie loved her. But what I saw is too often comics for this particular show, because of what I've already said about the way you write for Rosie, they were too attached to their own voice. And you have to let your voice go completely. I'm edgy, I'm dark, I'm all kinds of stuff. She was, we were Queen and Nice, family friendly. So it doesn't matter how I see the world. It doesn't. What I need to do is see the world the way she does. And that was a difficult thing for a lot of comics to do. My best two writers, Alan Katz and Casey St-Onge, were not comics. The two of them and Debbie were the best ones we had.
So doing that show, I know you won some Emmys, right?
6. Well, no, 5. I have 6, but 5 of them were from Rosie.
I can see right one above your shoulder there.
That's 4 of them.
So what was it like? I mean, what is it like when you find out, first you find out, and you're new to this. I mean, I don't know what season you won the Emmy, but you're very new. Like, that probably people got pissed people off more about, what the hell? I've been writing for 25 years. I don't have a goddamn Emmy, but look at her, 6 months down the thing. So what season was it when you first got nominated?
My first was the show started winning season 2. Season 1, Oprah got the best show, and Rosie and Oprah shared the best host. But from then on, we won best show for the next 5 years. So I got those 5. And then I won one for writing when I was on The View.
So what's it like, though? I mean, is it when you find out you're nominated? I mean, is it something that it's just amazing? It's like when I talk to actors who say when they find out they go on Broadway, it's like it's an amazing thing, but then they go there and they're like, oh God, these dressing rooms suck. It's a shitty old theater, but not shitty, but But so that first year,
honestly, it was so much work. Those first few years, it was hard to focus. There would be times you didn't sit down, you didn't go outside at all. I'd go in you'd go in the dark, and you would go out in the dark. I remember years later, actually walking down the street during the day, I felt like I was going to be picked off by snipers because I was so not used to being outside. You didn't eat, you didn't do anything. You would sometimes have to go the way it was, the office. But we didn't have printers in the office. The printers were outside in the bullpen, and you would run. You would get up and you would run for the print and run back because you just didn't have any time. So that part, it's like we got nominated, good, but the actual win, the first win, I remember. So you're sitting there. I think it was at Radio City, I think, and you're sitting there, and our show we're seated closer to the front, which is sometimes a sign, but we're sitting there, and when they say, they announce the show, and they say, Rosie, time slowed down for me. It felt like I was walking through water. I swear I thought I heard locusts. It was so, that was otherworldly. To actually win it was otherworldly. And every time, then you start to expect it, winning.
Right. I was going to ask you, does it so after a while you go, another Emmy? Does it get that way? Or
No,
is it
you
always,
still want those
you
damn
still-
statues. Yeah, I'd take another one now if I could. You still want them. Although the very last one, season 6, we knew it was our last season. We didn't get canceled. I'm sure you know that. Rosie decided to move on. Well, she said from day one she wasn't going to stay forever. Nobody believed her. I believed her. So we go out, and I never used to go to the dinner before, but I went to the dinner before because it was the last chance. And I started drinking vodka. Now, I was also on a diet, so I didn't eat anything. So I was sitting with John Redmond, who was one of the producers. He was the EP on The Talk for years, but he's wonderful, wonderful. And I am pouring him back. So by the time we get to the Emmys, I am 3 sheets to the wind. Every time another soap star I had never heard of won, I'm So I think I staggered onto the stage for that last one. It was fun. It was definitely fun.
So Rosie decides to leave
Mhm.
after season 6. So now what do you do? Because your identity is tied up into the Rosie show. You're working
Right.
80 hours a week. You stopped doing stand-up. Now I'm sure you got paid well, so it wasn't like you had to go find a job. And as we talked earlier, you have very cheap rent. So it's not
Yeah,
like,
well, I'm like you.
but-
I am frugal. I just, so many people, there were people when the show was coming to an end. She said she was going to do 4 years, but then she upped it to 6. And she said, I'm telling you all now, I'm not going to do more. Nobody believed her. The show, now it's really ending, and people were going, oh my God, I can live for 6 months. And I thought, well, I can live forever. What did you do with your money? Because I just stayed here. I like it. It's tenement. I'm fine. So that helped. I didn't want to. I loved working with her, and I told her this actually. I'm not gonna. I didn't grow up wanting to be a producer and a writer. I grew up wanting to be a performer. So if I'm gonna do the writing and producing, I better think that I'm with that person. Better mop the floor with me, and she does. I think she's incredibly talented, so that's why when I went back to Talk again, I went back with her, not otherwise. So I didn't want to go back to Talk, and I was on the show a lot. I was sort of the Rosie version of Biff, probably.
On which one? On the original?
On the original, I was on.
Okay, so but when that ends, what do you immediately do?
Well,
like
that's
when,
why.
I know
That's
you
why.
guys were the View.
So since I'd been on the show so much, I thought, well, let me just get my. I talked to another producer, and I said, she was on camera as a craft person. I was just on a lot, and I said, let's pool our star power, which was funny because we didn't have star power, and I'm going to use my lying skill again here. This will help people learning. I had an idea for a cooking show because I've mentioned fat, and my whole life is an up and down of fat, and so the show idea, which isn't very original now, but it was at the time, was it's a food makeover show. Here's this is because everybody says, if you want to lose weight, why don't you have a carrot? And if I wanted to have a carrot, I wouldn't be fat in the first place. You want the mac and cheese. So it was how to make those recipes lighter, healthier, and less fattening was the idea. And that's why I asked Christina, because I don't know how to cook. I had essays in print that my, repellent ex now, but was out of town. I was going to starve to death. So I go into the Food Network and go, yeah, home cook. Oh yeah, all my whole life. Yeah, I've been. No, I don't know how. But I convinced them by lying that it had been the passion of my life, and then lie only about things you would be able to do. So then, and we sell the show. And I didn't know very much at the time because I was used to I knew stand-up, I knew how to produce a show, but in the green light meeting, they said, we assume you want to produce this yourself. And I thought, oh yeah, meaning I want creative control. No. I signed the paper and it's, you deliver the tapes on such and such a day. Oh, that kind of produce. So I had to hire, it's like who you know, because even to get there, I had to do a budget. But my old assistant, who now works on Colbert, she helped me make a budget. I didn't know how to make a budget, so I had to hire the staff. I had to find a studio. What I didn't know anything about, an office space. What I didn't, and we were on a very tight timeline because by the time they said yes, we had to move really fast because it had to be done before Christmas. The thing about deficit financing is I knew it was something. I didn't know what it was. I know you know what it was, but for people listening, what it is they're going to give you the budget, but they're not going to give it to you in time. And I didn't know that until after I'd signed the contract. And they gave us a favorable schedule under the circumstances, but I had $150,000 shortfall that I had to cover it was only for 2 weeks, thank God, because I put it on my American Express card because I had to. And then if you mess up that production, you're not getting your money. But if I didn't pay that money, then there would be no cameras, there would be no studio. The company wouldn't allow it. So I did lose some weight during that. I had to stop drinking coffee just from the anxiety. And we had to do 13 shows in 5 days. And I had and I did live to tape, a 15-minute pad before going into overtime. And I never hit overtime. I'm very proud of that.
So what happened to the show?
Oh, it went until it got canceled. It was fun. It was a comedy cooking show, and like it was produced like a talk show because I had a live audience. I had Joey Cola doing the warm up. I just did all of the stuff that I would want to do because I didn't want to do a cooking show. I wanted to do a comedy show. So it just turned the cooking show into a comedy show. It was fun.
So after that ends, when's The View come? What happens
The
with
View?
The
The View comes in 2006. And that was, she just called me and said she was going to go to The View. Oh no, you know what it was? She emailed me and said she was going to do The View, and I said, really, cool. And then she goes, yeah, but you wouldn't want to do that. And I said, well, sure, because she didn't know if I was going to say yes, because she knew I was. By the time we left out of the show, I was edgy, to say the least. That's a great thing about Rosie is she could ride to work on a broom, and so could I. She would know people are actually human, and she lets you. She's not perfect. She doesn't expect everybody else to be perfect. So, and I said, well, yes, I would if you're there. And that was one where I was contractually attached to Rosie. I sent my contract back 3 times because they kept sending it without the attachment. And which I was very glad I did because they would have held me when she left, but they couldn't. And that was a great job. But
you were there for 3 years?
No, The View, we were only there for, I think it was 2.
Now, did you only write for Rosie or did you write for other people? How does that work? Because there's all the hosts. It's not like before you wrote for, and that's what you know, writing for one person.
Right.
So what was it like when you came on there? Was it just, I'd write for Rosie, or you got to write for this person or that person, or what was it like?
Well, The View, to be perfectly honest, it was the easiest Writers Guild job I've ever had, where our show was not at all easy. And you wrote a lot. Like I said, you're getting it out of her, but there's a lot of writing to get done too. And we did sketches and we did games. There's just a shit ton of stuff to do. But on The View, the hot topics writer, I probably shouldn't tell this, but I'm gonna. This is the great thing about being this age. We go in, and there really isn't very much writing to do. It's in a morning meeting, they will decide the topics. And when I got the job, Bill Getty said, "So this is what's going to happen. You're going to have the topics, and afterwards, you and Rosie are going to go in a room, and you're going to close the door, and you're going to put those in order." And I went, and that was it. So the very first day we walk out, I'm walking down the hall. My office was up in the dressing rooms with her. We're walking down the hall to her office. I said, "You want me to just do it?" She goes, "Yes." For God's sakes. And then, I mean, sometimes, and then I would take the topics and then I would do the thing, but you didn't work for the other people. The only one that had a writer other than Rosie was Joy Behar, who had a great writer, Andrew Smith. And he would go over the news stories and help her punch them up. And I would go in with Rosie. And once I'd made the list, and then we'd talk about it. And, it's, you get thinking, and then you know what you want to say. Some things then every once in a while there'd be a special show where you would do a lot of writing throughout the show. But it was not a hard job. I was sad to have that one in.
Yeah, that's good. So no. Okay, I looked you up, on Wikipedia, and I found out, and I'm interested in this, that you did you leave? Like after Rosie, you had chronic pain, right?
Oh, I am walking today because of Rosie. It was during the Rosie show. I had pain in my ankles, and then it grew and it grew. I'd wrap them every day in ace bandages so that I could stand the pain. And on a side note, in Paris in those days, instead of a regular toilet, they would have a hole with 2 feet. So you also get to pee all over your ace bandages. So that's a nice thing to imagine. But it got worse and worse and worse. And I went to doctor after doctor after doctor. I was in physical therapy for years. Rosie, as a gift, gave me $5,000 worth of kinesiology sessions because we didn't know what to do. I flew myself to LA in a wheelchair for a faith healer. That's how desperate I was getting. And then I'm in the stupid go-kart because I can't walk at all anymore. And for a minute, Rosie and I always wanted to do stand-up on her old show. And we got it in for a minute. And I was at Caroline's to look at comics. And I'd gained 50 pounds from not being able to move and being very upset and in a wheelchair. And I'm driving home in my wheelchair, just like sobbing. I went in because she'd said, "Do you want me to put you on the show?" And the next morning, I drove in and I said, "If you want to do it, now is a good time." So we did a segment called Fix Janette, and we got thousands and thousands of letters. And I kept seeing Dr. John Sarno. And then Tony Schwartz. I always feel bad about this because I was supposed to call him and I didn't. Tony Schwartz, who is a very well-known journalist, and he co-wrote the book with Michael Eisner at the time. And he was on the show, and he was watching, and he saw this, and he called and he told me about John Sarno, and I already had the list. So I went to Dr. Sarno. What I had, and many, many people have this and don't know it. And the only way you can recover is if you can accept the diagnosis. It is, the pain is real, the pain is physical, but the trigger is completely emotional. Your brain, in an effort to suppress unwanted emotion, lessens the blood supply anywhere in muscles, nerves, or tendons by 5%, which causes no real damage, but it causes pain. The more you change your life to accommodate the pain, the greater the pain will grow. Once I found out, and he's dead now, but he made it into his 90s. But you had to have an interview because while talking to you, he says, "Have you ever heard of somatizing pain?" If you go, "No, that's not me," he can't treat you because you have to be able to believe it. And he said, 2020 is doing a story on me. Do you want to be in that? And I thought, oh, if I'm in 2020, he'll try harder. So 2020 followed the story. That's why I think everybody knows about it. And it's literally a conversation. And within 2 weeks, I was pain-free.
Now, did you do Larry King too?
Huh?
Did you do Larry King?
Larry King, yes, I did.
So
I
what
thought
was
you
that
said a
like?
lot of cocaine, and I thought, well, no, that wasn't the problem with my ankles.
No. What was being in Larry King like? Because I think it'd probably be just great. Like everyone says, he's just a really cool guy.
Oh, that was wonderful, and that does lead me to one other story. So I'm booked for Larry King, and he was going to be in New York, and Howard was going to be on, and because Howard also has the same thing. He went to Dr. Sarno and got cured of his back pain, but then there was something, a shooting or something, much less significant than my getting to meet Larry King. And now he's in DC, so that I was going to be on satellite. And the producer calls me for the pre-interview. And I said, she's talking. I go, you know what? If you want, I can just come to DC. And she goes, no, that's not necessary. And I went, okay. And then she's talking, and where the interview was going. And I go, oh, you know what? If you want, I could just come to DC. And she went, no. Then I did it a third time, and she said, no, not necessary. And I went, okay, we're almost at the end. And I go, you know what? And I said exactly the same time, every single time. You know what? If you want, I could come to DC. And she goes, I'll check. And they flew me to DC, so I got to be in studio with Larry King. And at the time, I loved. Especially his show at the time. I went to a war zone because of Larry King, watching the way he did news in those days. Also thanks to Rosie. But the intro was something like, I'm going to talk to prominent Americans about Dr. Sarno. Then they go to break, and he turns to me and goes, look, I just made you a prominent American. He was very cool.
So after The View, what do you do? Where do you go?
Well, I had a book. I had the first book during the Rosie show. That was it was a good big bestseller, and it was called "Breaking the Rules: Last Ditch Tactics for Landing the Man of Your Dreams" that I wrote with a friend. And then after The View, there was another book. I hate to say the name. I think that was the worst book on earth. I'm embarrassed, but it made a lot more money than the successful one. And that was Embracing Your Big Fat Ass. But honestly, it's a terrible book. I just don't like it. Did that. Then I wrote a pilot for Stacey London for a talk show. Then little things. People call you. You write. I'll write anything. I'll write your grocery list if you want to pay me. But I had always wanted to be in radio, and I used to nag Rosie while we were on The View, because she'd be so good, radio. And then another email comes in, and she goes, "We're going to do radio. Come up with an idea. Write it up." That's all I get. And I wrote for when she did Love, Loss, and What I Wore, I got to do that, write that. So just like lots of little things, when it's not a gig, it's just you write whatever anybody offers. But then we went to SiriusXM and with Rosie Radio, and other than stand up, that's my other favorite job. And we did. I was totally inspired by Howard. I love Howard. And we did an ensemble show. And I still think this was not, I don't think this was her best choice because other than Howard, she was the only person that came into Sirius that showed a noticeable uptick in subscriptions, because that's what they cared about at the time. It's a different company now. But that's all they cared about. If you have 500,000 listeners and that's all you got, and you don't get another 500,000, then you're not successful. It's not about doing a good show. It's about increasing the listenership. And she did. And we did it out at her house. It was a radio. It was just a blast. But that show was so successful, it reignited people coming and suggesting TV, and I didn't want to go back to TV. I wanted to stay in radio, and so then she did, and it was on OWN, which I don't think was great. It showed eventually that it wasn't the right place. And I at Sirius, I said, I want to stay. I want a show. And they go, "You're going to go with her." I go, I am not. I'm not. I'm in the program directors. I got my hand on the door. I go, I'm not going to leave. And we got closer and closer till it was. Oh, and this was really sweet. The listeners started doing mail-in campaigns to get me a show. Don't be a sucker, give Janette a show, and they sent lollipops. Then be a smarty, so they sent Smarties. And so finally they gave me a show, and I remember Jeremy came afterwards. He looked like he'd been beaten. He goes, please tell them to stop, because they were writing to everybody. But I got that. And then I stayed, but my show wasn't full time. I was on Thursdays and Fridays. And she went to Chicago. She thought the show was going to be in New York, but it ended up being in Chicago. And she did that from in December. I went out to there because they were going to do a sweepstakes to win a ticket or something. And they wanted to launch the sweepstakes from my radio show. And they had Oprah had a studio out there. So it was easy to do. So I went out for that. And afterwards, Rosie and I have had more conversations in closets and dressing rooms than I can even begin to tell you. She brings me in the closet. She goes, you got to come out here. You got to come out here. All right. So I commuted to Chicago. I would fly out on Sunday nights and fly back on Wednesday nights, do my show on Thursday and Friday, have Saturday off, and go back then. And we changed, not just me, we had a great new EP, Shane Farley, and changed the format of the show because they were trying to sandwich her into something. It's always a mistake when you've got a great talent to try to make them be what you think they should be instead of trying to discover what brings out their everything. So the format changed, and I think the show really started to find its legs, but then we got canceled. So I came back to New York and stayed doing Sirius until there was it was a corporate takeover. Liberty Media took over SiriusXM, and whatever his name, somebody stepped down, and they took the axe. Like 15 shows went, and mine was one of them. I got replaced with Martha Stewart's reruns.
Oh man! So now are you writing still, or are you just retired? I mean, you probably get
right now. Listen, I was. This is not a positive thing, but I spent a few years working on these two projects that I actually think are some of the best work I've ever done. And unfortunately, I'm not going to tell you who it is. He's not a comic, but I had a partner, and he won't. One is a pitch, but the other is we wrote and produced the episodes. I produced it. We co-wrote it. I produced it. I performed it, and he was the post. And he brought it up to 90%, and it just never got done. And I waited from the time of the original agreement that it was going to be done. I waited a year, and then and that was just a few months ago. So and he's the most brilliant man. He's the funniest. I'm telling you, this guy is a genius. So I don't know why. I just don't know why. But I might have mentioned temper. I have a temper.
Well, that may be it.
Yeah. So no, I never had a temper then. We never had an argument.
So what's going to happen with the show?
It's dead.
Do you have the rights to it, or does he have the rights to it, or why can't you?
We have the rights to it. We have the rights to it. It didn't get done, and I'm almost 72, and so right now in my head, I don't know if you've ever had that where something you really believed in that you put in literally a couple of years speculative work, and had it fall apart. I haven't felt like well, what's next? So I'm experimenting with what's it like to not identify myself through a career. What would it be like to live without saying, hi, this is what I do and this is what I'm working on? What if people don't, if you meet somebody and you don't even tell them what you ever did? see what that feels like. So I'm sort of doing that, and I'm traveling a lot. I'm going to St. Lucia next week. In the fall, I'm going to Bucharest, Istanbul, and Paris and London. It always goes back there.
Look at you. Me and Joanne are going to Cleveland next week, and you're going everywhere. We are going to Cleveland, actually. We're going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Football Hall of Fame. And
post about that. I want to know how that is. My sister
wants to have fun. Yeah. So, anyway, so before we go, I always ask my guests this question. Looking back at your life, you've had a very successful career. I mean, you have 6 Emmys. You're a headliner. You work on big TV shows. What are a few things you're proud of? What are you proud of in your life?
Well, the thing I am most proud of is that with Rosie's help, again, all roads lead, I was able to help raise between $5 and $6 million for international disaster relief. That thing that when I said because of Larry King, during the war in Kosovo, I would watch, he did the best coverage of Kosovo. And I remember one night, a woman crossing into Macedonia, it was running in streams, not drops, streams. And that war, more than any other one, maybe because I paid more attention, that got me. And we were not we were a Happy Bunny show. We were not a news show, but I would go in because I would brief every morning because it was my segment, and I would talk about this war. And I wanted her to talk about it. She gives more money than, untold sums for domestic charities. She has always cared about the United States. She has always cared about children. I don't give a crap about children. Not really, but it's not my thing. And so this one morning, and I remember because she said, "Oh, all right." And she talked about it, and we put up research found a group called AmeriCares. They called afterwards because they got so many donations just from her mentioning it. I mean, she talked about it compellingly, that it blew out their phone lines. And my assistant answered the phone, and she didn't hang up on the call. She put them on hold because she wanted to say, "Oh my God, they want to invite Rosie on an airlift," because that's not something Rosie's going to want to do. And I said, "Tell them she might be interested," because I was interested. And Rosie, and then, so I told her I want to go, and we'll do it. So it's okay with her, but the production company, she calls me one night at home, and she says that the production company, it's basically not no way, not no how. And I'll sign, it's okay to die paperwork, because you have to. When you go you go to the DMZ, you go anywhere, you got to sign, it's okay to die. They don't care. They won't let me do it. Then she waits so she can hear the disappointment sink in. And then she goes, "So here's what we're going to do. You can take a leave of absence that won't affect your paycheck, and you can go, but I can't get a crew. So can my repulsive ex," we weren't calling him that then. She said, "Can he take the time off? And we'll give you the camera." And that's how it happened. So I got to go first to the refugee camps in Albania during the war, which was the most profound experience imaginable. And she let me go during sweeps. Sweeps. But that's that. I mean, really, she really is something. And then back in the summer, we went back. We were the first group from any agency to get in. The city was still burning. Then a year or so after that, I went to Republic of Congo in response to a civil war. And that's where, and then on my own afterwards, but that's what started it. And then I worked with another group, Medical Missions for Children, which is mostly cleft palates, which really speaks to me because I was tormented for my looks my whole life because of the size. And Rwanda, Ukraine, and Philippines. Those, of anything I've done, those were the best things, the most rewarding for me personally, and the most significant that I ever did. And lastly, I do talk a lot, but if you go to a refugee camp, you will see humanity in just boiled down to beauty. I'm a misanthropist. I don't even like people. But in a refugee camp, they have lost everything, and all that's left. There's no all that's left is the need and whatever beauty there is, and all the beauty that there is in people, and it's worth anything to go. And I would like no one to ever have to be in a refugee camp, but when you're looking at refugees, unless you've been there, you don't know how profound it is. So that's what I'm most proud of.
That's awesome, Janette. I'm so glad you came on tonight. It's always good to see you, even though we haven't seen each other in person for years. And
I know,
so
but I feel like I know you.
Janette.
It's like, what did Steve eat tonight?
I know, it's because it's the Facebook. It's the Facebook. But people look up Jannette Barber. She's great. And also people go to look me up. Go to YouTube, find Coop's Comedy Corner. Jimmy Corhan is Comedy Train Wreck Productions. And he has a bunch of shows he produces. John Kensel has one. The Wid has one. There's a whole list of shows. So go look us up, okay, and go watch the show. Also, go look up the Coop Tank. That's my weekly business show that's on hiatus right now, where I moderate 3 local business people, and we talk about, goals, motivation, all that good stuff. And finally, go to coopertalk.net, where I've recorded over 1,040 episodes. Recently just posted Chris Sarandon and Spider Stacy from the Pogues. There's some great shows there. So keep watching, keep listening. Go to coopscomedycorner.com for swag. Thank you, Jimmy Corhan. Thank you, Jannette Barber. People, I will not be here next week. I'll be in Cleveland, and you all have a great week.
Coop's Comedy Corner.